Jersey, and the Israel and Moses, I declare you husband and wife. Mazel
Okay. I'm gonna use my good foot.
Sounds good.
For the parents of the bride, Linda and Marshall Gates, ladies and gentlemen. Linda and Marshall Gates, right there. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, coming through the door, give it up for the bride's brother and sister-in-law, Jeff and Lisa Gates. Right there.
Back on the street, did my time, took my chances.
Oh yeah, ready to go on a Saturday afternoon. All right, coming through the door, another set of the brides, sister and brother-in-law, Andrea and Brad Davis, right there. Andrea and Brad Davis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, how about a little extra special applause for my ring bearer and flower girls, Zachary, Alexandra, and Gabriella Davis. Give it up for Zachary, Alexandra, and Gabriella Davis, the ring bearer and flower girls right there. All right, coming through the door, put your hands together for Netta, ladies and gentlemen. Netta coming through. Ready to go. Alright, coming through the door. Give it up for Josh, ladies and gentlemen. Josh coming on through. Give it up for T-Ron right there. T-Ron.
Rising up, straight to the top. Had the guts, got the glory.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming through the door. Give it up for Anthony the Fish Kim right there. everybody up. Now listen, after that song, I want everybody to get their napkins off the table. Get those napkins and get them swinging in the air, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a beautiful day.
Get those napkins swinging in the air.
Sky falls.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Beautiful day.
coming through that door, give it up for Jennifer and Gary Fight, Mr. and Mrs. Fight right there.
In the mind.
Keep those napkins swinging.
Maze of her imagination. Your loving style.
Mr. and Mrs. Fight, ladies and gentlemen.
Doesn't ring true. You've been all over, and it's been all over you. It's a beautiful day.
It is a beautiful day for a Saturday afternoon celebration.
Beautiful day.
How about one more round of applause, Mr. and Mrs. Fight right there.
Touch me.
That's what I call an entrance right there. All right, it is time for the first dance here. Very important dance. Very cool song. Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And the sun did come out. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Fight right there. Now, I don't want anybody to go anywhere off that dance floor. If you're not on the dance floor, get on the dance floor. It's time for the hora. Let's go. Let's go. Nestled. Give yourselves a round of applause out there.
As we break bread, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
All right, we found them, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, round of applause for Andrea and Jeff.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea, Jen's sister. Thank you all for coming today to celebrate Jen and Gary. Thank you. I remember when we were kids and Jen always wanted to do something that was different than what I was doing because I'm her older sister. So at one point, Jen decided she was gonna do running and be on a cross-country team, and that was going to take her away from whatever I was doing. At one point, she even joined the cross-country, and over the years, she's continued to run, do many marathons, and she even joined the Hoboken Runners Club. Gary, too, of course, is a runner, for those of you who know him, and he lived in Hoboken for many years as well. In fact, Jen and Gary were practically neighbors for many years before they ever met. I think that their courtship is somewhat serendipitous. It started 4 years ago, but it very well could have started 15 years ago. In fact, I suspect that Jen and Gary probably ran across the street near each other many times over the years before they were actually introduced to each other. We're so blessed that Jen and Gary finally ran into each other 4 years ago this month. Gary, we are thrilled to welcome you to the family. We have already noticed that Jen is now on time, thank you to your influence. I no longer have to tell her that holiday family dinners start an hour earlier because they sort of get there on time. We were even surprised recently they were early. They were the first guests. We wish both of you a lifetime of running by each other's sides, a life filled with love, happiness, and good health together. Please raise your glasses and toast to Jen and Gary. May each day be full of love and laughs. L'chaim. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you.
Now, Jen, when you asked me to talk today, I was a little surprised but happy. So I basically started by making a long list of all the embarrassing stories I have about you. So I have those stories right here. We're going to avoid reading through the whole list today, but anyone's welcome to try and sneak some embarrassing stuff out of that. Gary, as I think you know by now, you are not the first Gary in Jen's life that she had a crush on. The first one was Gary Carter, the Gary Carter starting lineup baseball figurine. Some of you may remember those from back in the 80s. Well, Jen and I used to fight over Gary Carter, the starting lineup, all the time, and I like to think, now that she met you, that fighting over that helped her fall in love with the name Gary, and as such, she ended up falling in love with you. Now, Jen, I remember the first time you mentioned Gary to us. I was talking to you over the phone, and you told me this was the best start, by far and away, the best start any relationship you ever had. So right away, we knew that there was something special. But when did I know that it was something special? It was when Gary got you to go to a Smashing Pumpkins concert. Which, finally, I have someone in the family who's a Smashing Pumpkins fan. And also, Gary is a New York Giants fan. So those two together make up for the fact that I now have to accept that there's a Mets fan in the family. Now, I do admit, Gary, when you did get married, I was a little disappointed when you said "I do" at the wedding, because I really thought that you were going to do an "oh yeah" like the Macho Man would have. But unfortunately, everyone's got to come up with their own words, and you certainly did that. You create your own words and your own path in life, and you're certainly doing that. So we all know that today's wedding celebration wasn't the original plan, but the two of you stuck together and made it work to make the best of a bad situation. You proved that while things in life don't always go your way, it's how you deal with them together that will define who you are as a couple. So let me tell you something, brother and sister. You're both going to rock marriage and parenthood, and Lisa and I and the whole family couldn't be happier to have welcome Gary to the family. So, mazel tov.
Are you ready? Just had to go with that. Actually, my 6-year-old really likes the "oh yeah." He's like fascinated with that. So, I want to thank everybody for coming. And I know it means a lot to Gary and Jen. And I know the celebration's been fraught with a lot of pandemic challenges, kind of becoming a 2-part deal. And I know a lot of people couldn't make it last year, so we're excited to celebrate with you here today. My name's Josh, and Gary and I actually go back really far, so far that we lived in a castle, and Gary had a full head of hair. It was actually like a funny act of fate that brought us together. We were just randomly paired by the Brandeis Housing Authority, and we went through our 4 years together, and it was pretty awesome to make a best friend on the first day of school. And then we actually lived in a castle, which they've torn down, but Brandeis had a castle, and a lot of our other roommates are here too. But since college, Gary and I have actually kind of stayed close while traveling sort of parallel paths in different areas. And I remember Gary would come up and visit us a lot in Boston, and I found out, Jen has a connection to Boston too, with family up there. So there's a lot of parallel paths, running side by side, which is really interesting. Then I moved to New York, and we were roommates, almost roommates again. We were Upper East Side neighbors. And then Gary followed me to Hoboken, where my wife and I were living while I was in dental school. And then Gary stayed and then met Jen. So it's kind of an interesting stepwise story. But I think, Jen, you already know who you've chosen as your partner. But I'd like to highlight some qualities of Gary that I've discovered over the years. More of a toast than a roast. So, my wife Becca, who's not here, she wishes she could join us. She's with our kids. Pandemic kind of killed our childcare situation. So, but she summed it up well when she told me how excited you were to come live close by us, because she said Gary is family, and so it's always felt like that, having you close by. And it's rare to have a friend that you grow and change with over time and stay friends. Gary, you've always been loyal and true. And these are great qualities to have, because I remember when I was in some rough times, you were always there for me. Gary's also interesting. He's a lifelong learner. We only took one class together because I was on the science track, and Gary does communications. But we took Yiddish together, which was great. And then we actually did classes in New York City together. So it was a lot of fun. Gary is very determined. I know we talked a lot about running, but believe it or not, Gary was not athletic at all when we went to college. And so he went from that to, I think it was the JDRF, he started writing. We worked out at the gym, and we saw the Celtic players tower overing us because they practiced in our gym. And that kind of sort of inspired us, but then Gary took on this long bike ride through the JDRF, and that got him in shape, and then he started running marathons. So that's very impressive. Gary has a very small family, but family is very important to him. And I think, his mom's not here today, but she's a big part of his life, and what he's done for her is very admirable the last few years. What I've also learned about Gary is that he can be competitive and likes to be right. But the truth is he was a lot of the time. And I think with age and maturity, he's learned to be a little more diplomatic, which should be better for marriage. Being married myself, I've learned about compromise. And I was once told, I think my dad told me, he's like, you can be right and you can be alone. So, yeah, Gary definitely kind of matured into, I think you met Gary at the right time. And Jen, you and Gary have already faced and overcome a lot of challenges together. And wedding vows don't really get tested so soon, but Gary was injured and you had to take care of him pretty early on, and you had to live together cooped up during the pandemic, so that's a true test of any relationship. And I think you, like I said, you think you're both well matched and you met each other at the right time. And I've been happy to see you exploring, traveling, and sharing a passion for new experiences together. And I'm excited to see you commence this next phase of life together. So I'd like to congratulate you both and wish you a lifetime of love and happiness together. Let's toast the newlyweds a year late. Cheers. L'chaim.
Hi, everybody. I'm Netta Levy. I'm Jen's college friend. So we met in 1996. And before I get there, I just want to say that it's just an honor and a privilege to be sharing this long-awaited day of celebration with you both, with Linda and Marshall and your entire family and friends. So I've been waiting for this day for about 12 years. Where is Linda? Linda, I know you've been waiting much longer than that. And I'll tell you why I've been waiting for 12 years. And it goes back to Jen being persistent. So if you took a poll of everybody in this room and say, what are Jen's qualities? Jen's loving, Jen's generous, kind, giving, all of those things, right? Totally right. But if I were to narrow that down, I would say the top quality that I keep on hearing is that she's persistent. And that's the reason we're here today. And she's brought all of us together with Gary. And also that's why I'm married with 2 kids, and my husband really wanted to be here, but couldn't. So this is the story of how Jen's persistence changed my life. She moved back from Boston in 2010, and I was living in New York City, and I'd been to countless Shabbat dinners, hoping that I'm gonna meet my beshert, except I just kept on meeting more women. So Jen's like, Netta, let's go to B'nai Gershwin, let's just do it. I'm like, oh, Jen, okay, I'll buy a ticket, whatever. So April comes, April 2010. She's like, did you buy your ticket? It's tomorrow night. I'm like, no, we're not going. I don't have a ticket. She's like, oh, okay, fine. So May rolls around, and she's like, Netta, just show up. I bought you the ticket. Let's go already. It's been 6 months. Okay. So I show up, and I'm on time, and Jen is stuck in traffic in the tunnel, so she's an hour late. And yes, I know you keep her on time. So when we get there, the place is oversold, and they have to separate us. And she sits next to I'm sorry, Jen. Well, actually, no, it's a good thing because you ended up meeting Gary, so that's great. So they separated us, and I sat next to my husband that night because she bought me a ticket because she was persistent. And that quality of her, I've never forget. And that is why we're here, because Jen never gives up, and she never settles. And in Gary, she waited a long time, Gary, and I have to tell you, the night that we met you, and she was beaming, not because she had amazing makeup on, which she did at the time, and her beautiful red dress, but I distinctly remember when we did a double date, I just saw Jen the happiest I'd ever seen her. And I knew you were the one because the way you looked at her, the little touches, none of it went unnoticed because I'd seen a lot. And I thought, wow, the day is here. I bet Linda's really happy. And Marshall too. So Gary, I know Jen has found her beloved in you, and I know you guys are soulmates. Your love is so beautiful. You guys have been tested early on, but the persistence keeps on continuing, and we can't wait to see your love grow and continue on into this new chapter of your life. We're so happy for you and wishing you a lifetime of joy, happiness, love, and just experiencing new experiences together. Let's all raise a glass to Jen and Gary. May your life be filled with love, happiness, joy. Love you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, nice round of applause for Netta right there. All right, I got one more toast for now. I'm going to hand the microphone over to the groom's friends since Fort Lee Elementary School, Tiran and Anthony the Fish Kim. Give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
So Gary told us there were 6 speakers. Gary told us there were 6 speakers. We had to adjust our time. So he told us about 45 minutes for Fish and I together. We were able to cut this down to about 37. So grab a drink, relax, and here we go. Ready? Why don't you step over here for a minute. No, wrong. That's the wrong one, sorry. Good? Good? Big Mac McDeal, tier, quarter pounder with some cheese fillet, fish, a hamburger, cheeseburger, Happy Meal, McNuggets, Desi, Gold.
What's going on? What are you doing?
Well, I said that we'd perform.
Wait, this is, what are you doing? I know, but why are you performing that?
That's an epic song, McDonald's theme song from the 1980s. I said I would do that for Gary.
Yeah.
Big Mac McDeal, tier, quarter pounder with some cheese.
See, it's not about you. It's about Jen and Gary.
Let's regroup for a minute. Hold on, come on. Now, I was the best bass in Bergen County in high school. I was known for that, and you were the best soprano in Bergen County in high school. I thought we would sing for Gary.
Yeah, it's about Jen and Gary.
But I like to make things about me whenever I'm around Gary. It's
Yeah,
entirely about me.
Gary knows you know how to make it about you.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. All right, look, you got a speech here. Why don't you go ahead and I'll try to regroup. I'm just going to grab my phone, write something real quick, and we'll take it from there. All right. Yeah, Fish.
All right, okay. Okay, let's try to regroup here. I'm still trying to recover from that horror. Oh my gosh, Gary's pretty heavy. For those that don't know us, we're Gary's oldest friends, the two of us. I'm Gary's second oldest friend. Tiran is Gary's first oldest friend. That's almost 40 years of friendship from the both of us. And yes, that does mean we're getting old. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming here. The wedding reception and the celebration has been years in the making. And I know Gary and Jen appreciate everybody coming here, especially the ones that need to travel long distances. But how did we meet? Well, first of all, me and Gary were in the same first grade class together at Fort Lee School number 3. And for those that don't know about Fort Lee, the class is about approximately 50% Jewish, 50% Korean, and I think there was one Armenian there too. I don't really know how he snuck in. So it was the perfect place for a Korean kid and a Jewish kid to start growing a relationship. But back in elementary school, Gary had 3 things I didn't have. He had cable TV, he had a VCR, and he had a treasure trove of WWE tapes. I was a big wrestling fan back then, and I would anxiously wait for Gary to invite me over because then I could watch the last weekend's Saturday night's main event and spend all day watching his WrestleMania tapes. I didn't even like Gary necessarily, per se, but mostly I just went over to his place just to watch his TV. Yes, our friendship kind of started on the backs of Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage, and our personal favorite, Kamala, who we actually were fortunate enough to meet at a WrestleMania event. But as we got older, my love for the WWE started to wane. My friendship with Gary only got stronger. As we got older, I found out I had more in common with Gary than just my selfish need to use him for his cable TV. We both discovered a love for the New York Mets and the New York Giants, and we would often go to a bar together, watch the Mets, and then afterwards, we would cry and console each other. We also celebrated in the success of the Giants, and one of my fondest memories was going to a victory parade together after they won Super Bowl 46. I've discovered Gary's adventurous side. Yes, Gary does have an adventurous side. I'm not sure how many people know this, but we traveled around the world together. This culminated in us going on a hike in Trinidad that was too dangerous and too remote that even the locals were shocked that we went on it. We actually ended up taking our taxi driver with us, who instead of waiting for a couple of hours for us in his car, he decided to pass the time by going with us on the hike. That was a big mistake as he actually ended up almost passing out, and Gary and I had to carry him out on the mountainside. So what does it really mean to be friends with Gary for over 35 years? It doesn't only mean that I've seen him go through his mullet phase, his goatee phase, that was a long time, and then finally see him slowly become bald. It doesn't only mean that I've seen him transform from a fat, robust guy, he could barely run a mile, to someone who now runs marathons. Who would have thought? It means that we've seen each other at our best and our worst, and we've still decided to remain friends. I'm not going to tell any stories about Gary at his worst, since it's not really the appropriate time. But I think that says something really about the quality of his character. We're obviously not blood related, so something about Gary made us stay close for almost 40 years and become like family. This finally brings us to this point in our lives. Gary's finally getting married. I can tell you that Jen is a godsend, and is readily welcome into our family. I think from the start she meshed very well with all of us, and we're so excited to be welcoming her into our family. Gary, you did really good, and I'm so happy for you guys. And if we can lift our glass. Oh, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I'm going to say a couple of things about myself. We need to really talk about me and not Gary. We've had enough of that. I'm going to take everybody back to May 6, 1990. I don't know where everybody was back then, May 6, 1990. That was a Sunday. Gary's going through his Rolodex right now because he's got an excellent memory. This was in a small living room in Fort Lee, New Jersey, and that was a Sunday. And the Boston Celtics were hosting the New York Knicks in Game 5 of the first round of the NBA playoffs. And it was 2-2, obviously, 5-game series. And I grew up a Celtics fan, and Gary is clearly a New York Knicks fan. Blah. Sorry, anybody who is a Knicks fan. So I followed the original and the greatest big three ever: Bird, McHale, Parrish. Anybody? Yeah, hey. That's right. A lot of Bostonians in the house. I like it. All right. The Celtics had won 26 straight games at home. If you didn't know that, against the Knicks, owned them that season. They were 4-1 against them. And with about 4 minutes left, I'm sorry for all the people this will bring trauma to, Larry Bird had a wide open drive to the lane and missed a dunk. Wide open, nobody covering him. And everything collapsed from there. And my best friend, who was in the living room with me, started to celebrate, trash talk, gloat, chirp in my ear, anything that you can imagine that somebody who's a horrible Knicks fan would do, did it in my own living room. So I did what I would do. When the game was clearly over, I left the room. I went into the kitchen to eat dinner with my family, and I told Gary to stay in the living room. He was not invited to join me and my family at the dinner table. And my mom said, "Don't you want to invite Gary to dinner?" And I said, "No, he can stay in there." And he continued to chirp and watch the post-game interviews and yell through the wall saying, the Knicks finally beat the Celtics. They're going on to the next round. And 2 decades before Facebook became a thing, I decided I was going to unfriend Gary Stewart Fight. So fast forward, 2021, obviously we're here. I did not unfriend Gary, and I continued our relationship. A friendship that next year will have reached 40 years, which I'm extremely proud of, I'm humbled by. And this is a friend that my longest friend that I've ever had in my life, outside of clearly my parents and my sister. So, we're not talking about being in touch with each other 3 times a week, 3 times a year. Gary and I literally through elementary school would talk with each other on the phone when home phones were a thing. You had your friend's home phone number, you would call him. The only reason we kept this gentleman behind me in the loop is because his family had 3-way calling. And that is why we were friends with him, because we could then incorporate other friends into the phone conversations with us. And as things progressed through middle school, table number 4 here and table 12 there, we had other friends that came into our mix. We became very good friends with them. We went to college together. .edu addresses became a thing, and we were in touch with each other through college. And then obviously today, up until today, we text message literally on a daily basis, Gary and I and all of our friends, and we are in touch with each other. So lifelong friendships, this is a prime example of it. So now you know our background, and I'm going to tell you some of the lesser known facts about Gary that I'm sure you are all intrigued by and interested in. I'll make it quick, don't worry. Gary has been an entrepreneur all his life. I don't know if you guys knew this. In the late 1980s, he was part of a three-person unit that attempted to revolutionize the elementary school writing implement carrying industry. I'm going to say that again. The elementary school writing implement carrying unit. Gary is one of the lead developers for a Velcro-fastened pencil case. And the team made it to the finals of an invention competition. The three individuals may be myself and the Asian guy standing behind me, along with Gary. So we made it to the finals, and I'm just going to say one of us, maybe the groom, I'm just saying, didn't secure the Velcro properly during our final presentation. We dropped the pencil case, and it opened, and all the pencils and pens fell out, thus losing the competition. I'm just saying. He has not lived it down 35 plus years later. During middle school, Gary and I attempted to disrupt the educational periodical world and the way that magazines were delivered to schools. The Business Reply Project, as we called it, the Business Reply Project wound up turning a local school upside down with things they'd never seen before. Magazines they never expected were being delivered to the school with names they never thought would be on the labels. Sadly, our investors did not agree with our business plan, and the company was folded after 10 days. Is that accurate? 10 days? 10 days of tough, 10 days. Some of Gary's other accomplishments. Gary's a thespian. I don't know if you guys know this. A lifelong member of Troop 3103. A couple of members here. Carrie in the back. Fish behind me. Troop 3103. Gary was a widely regarded actor in his early years. He delivered one of the greatest monologues of all time, playing the character of Lenny in the Neil Simon Show Rumors. It won Gary tremendous accolades in a well-circulated and critically acclaimed publication called The Fort Leader. I don't know if you guys know about that. It was the Fort Lee High School publication. Fort Leader. No? These guys. 4 and 12. Thank you. Thank you. Gary is a Lewis F. Cole Geography B champion. He hit his competitors in the chin, maybe chin co, en route to the regional finals. Yep, definitely. And in 2008, Gary popped his cherry. Sorry, I lost my place. No. Oh, I got it. Gary popped his cherry, finally winning a fantasy football championship in the legendary and world-renowned MG Rat Fantasy Football League. Many of the members are here at those tables right now. Congratulations, 2008. Thank you. Gary, Guillermo, we used to call him in Spanish class. Garbis, his name is in Armenian, and Gary Gnu. Our friendship for 40 years, close to 40 years, has been solidified through mutual love, respect, and laughter. And I'm lucky to say that I have many intelligent and smart people in my circle. I'm blessed with that, and Gary ranks amongst the highest on that list. I would venture to say that he's one of the smartest people in any room he walks into. That's not a lie. And if I'm ever in need of looking up something, trivia, grammar, stats, word choice, I would say the easy answer, most people would say, is to Google it, and I prefer to Gary it. And I do that, and he's told, I've done that. I've texted him, I've called him, and I've said, Gary, what is the best course of action here? And this is the guy that you want for that answer. So, let's talk about his best accomplishment to date, which is the young lady to his right. Jen, we're very happy to have you within our group of friends and family. You've experienced that amongst our friends, our family, and you've gelled so well with us that it's very clear to us that you're a special person, since you can tolerate the guy sitting to your left. But I have 2 pieces of advice for you. Number 1, if you're ever apart from each other for work, whatever reason, and you miss him, you need to turn off all the noise in your room, in your house, wherever you are. Just listen. It got very quiet in here. If you listen closely, you will surely hear Gary's loud and boisterous laugh from anywhere he is in the world. 100%. 100%. And two, in first grade, Gary was the biggest chatterbox in first grade in Linda Feynman's class. And he knows where I'm going with this. Mrs. Feynman used to say, Gary, if you don't shut your mouth, I'm going to stick a grapefruit in it. So, I have brought many grapefruits with me, and I'm going to give these to you that you can stuff in Gary's mouth whenever you need him to stop talking. I'm going to turn it over to my friend the fish here for the final toast.
Let's lift our glasses for a long, love-filled marriage for Jen and Gary. Woo!
Welcome to all of you who came from far and wide to be here with us, with Jen and Gary today. Linda and I thank you for coming to rejoice with Jen and Gary. We do this because the Talmud tells us to rejoice with the bride and groom, and that's what we are doing today. It was the best of times and the worst of times in March of 2020. Jen and Gary were in love and ready for the wedding. But COVID-19 was rampaging and caused a shutdown of public events. The ceremony went ahead anyway. It was one of the last such events because hours later, there was an official shutdown. There were 11 guests, if you want to call us guests, in our house for the wedding, on the deck behind the house. There was an improvised chuppah. It was probably the last place that Jen imagined getting married. And Gary never imagined, I'm sure, that there would be Johnny Walker Blue Label there. He probably didn't imagine. And Corona beer, yeah. And he didn't imagine, I'm sure, that there would be any Johnny Walker Blue Label here today either. But there is, right here. Since that time, it has been a marathon of sorts to get here today. But that's only fitting because both Jen and Gary have run numerous marathons, and they ran one today and this one together to get ready for today. They've also gone hiking most weekends. They are lucky to find each other with similar interests and values. Jen has always been devoted to family and always makes the right decisions, such as choosing Gary. He's a wonderful person, as we've learned, and as is illustrated by his devotion to his mother. We're pleased and proud to welcome Gary to our family, another Democrat. Even if he's a Met fan. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. I promise this will be one of the shortest speeches that you'll hear all afternoon. So, yeah. I want to start out with a poll of the room, though. How many of you are attending your first event like this, post-pandemic, or since the pandemic started, dressed up with all these people? How many? It's the first time? Yeah. A lot of you. Okay, good. And then how many of you had a moment like 2 or 3 weeks ago where you popped up in bed in the middle of the night and you're like, oh crap, is my suit or my dress gonna fit me? Yeah, well, okay, a lot of us. Well, try being Jen. Try getting pregnant and fitting into your wedding dress, so yeah. But, you know, in all seriousness, obviously I don't have to tell you about all of the challenges we've collectively faced over the last year and a half. You know, packing on some pandemic pounds, that's really the least of it. It's been a lot of challenges. You know, we were so close in March of 2020 to pulling this off until our plans got upended. And we went from plan A to plan B to plan C to plan D, and we finally did that little back porch ceremony. Although we do like to think of ourselves as Zoom wedding pioneers. We know some of you were able to witness that from afar, and you know, your presence, you know, those of you who were able to watch it kind of made the day feel special. It made us feel connected, so we appreciate that. But you know, we know the last year and a half has been faced with all sorts of challenges and questions. What's safe, what's not, a lot of decisions. What should I do, what shouldn't I do? And we didn't at all take for granted that any of you were gonna show up today. And just the fact that you stuck it out with us, you made the decision after a year and a half to be here with us, to celebrate with us, you made that choice. It really means the world to us, and just from the bottom of our hearts, we just want to say thank you for being here with us today. Cheers everyone.
So when we got engaged about 2 years ago, we really wanted to have a short engagement. We didn't want to mull over all the little details. So never did we imagine that we'd be here 2 years later, finally celebrating. I want to thank my parents for their love and support. Growing up, Mom was always the bar mitzvah planner to like friends as well. So thank goodness she's retired now and had time to plan all these little details and go apple picking for the guests that are staying in the hotel. All the little details that we would have missed because working full time and trying to plan a wedding wasn't possible. So thank you. And Dad, thank you for your calm demeanor throughout all of this as Mom and I panicked when the world turned upside down. So you just are a rock all the time. We love you both. L'chaim.
Show out, smooth and fresh on too high, too high, big bird won't too high, too high, say my name, you know who I am, too high, all about that money, you're gonna say hallelujah, you're gonna say hallelujah, you're gonna say hallelujah, so time I'm gonna give you, whole time I'm gonna give you, time I'm gonna give you, tell me that when
Don't believe in this wine. 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 Hey, 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 hey. Richie on guitar, y'all.
Two.